Okay, so this is Geometry 11.2, surface areas of prisms and cylinders. We're first going to do surface areas of prisms. Now these are polyhedron that have the same shape as a base and a top, two parallel bases that'll be the same, and then wrapped around by rectangles. So it'll be easy to find, but today's objective, students will be able to find the surface area of a prism and cylinder. Now, essential understanding. To find the surface area of a three-dimensional figure, okay, now these are 3D figures, these polyhedrons, okay, when we're thinking about it, find the sum of the areas of all the surfaces of the figure. Now, a prism is a polyhedron with two congruent parallel faces. This is a big deal. Our bases here and this base here are the two parallel faces, and remember, they're identical, okay? So parallel identical faces are bases. Now, please keep in mind, non-square or rectangles are more than likely the base for a prism. The other faces are lateral faces. So we're talking about these faces here are my lateral faces in this particular shape, and the ones behind us and back here. Now remember, they use dotted lines to represent the sides that you can't see supposedly, but the red is the lateral surfaces. Those are lateral faces. You can name a prism using the shape of its base. So that's why this one is called a pentagonal prism, and this is a triangular prism. Remember, the triangle are the bases. And remember, these triangles, they're identical, okay? So be keeping in mind, my lateral faces are my rectangles that attach the two triangles. Now, an altitude of a prism is a perpendicular segment that joins the planes of the bases. So whether it's vertical like the ones I provided, or here I've got an altitude, that's representing my height, or the height, that's the separation of my two bases, in this case my bases are trapezoids. So all those formulas that we used in chapter 10 will be applied in chapter 11 automatically. So that's talking about the perpendicular segment, the distance between the bases. Now keep in mind, the bases we will be working with in the shapes, the prisms that we'll be working with will always be parallel. Okay, unless there's another cone. If there's going to, if we have a collection of two different things, that'll happen too. Now, we have two types. We have a right prism and an oblique prism. Okay, oblique prisms is where it is shifted off from the base. So we have, this is perpendicular with the plane that the base is contained in with the top. A right prism, the side of the prism is perpendicular, is smooth with the height between the two bases. So that's the difference between right prism and oblique prism. Now in a right prism, lateral faces are rectangles and lateral edges is an altitude. In an oblique prism, some or all of the lateral faces are non-rectangular. In this book, you may assume that a prism is a right prism unless stated or pictured otherwise. The lateral area, LA, of a prism is the sum of the areas of the lateral faces. So the lateral area is the sum of faces that are not bases. The lateral area is the sum of all the faces that are not bases. And then the total surface area is that lateral surface area and the area of the two bases. And that's what this says here in this next section. So it's a lot of stuff that we're going on. Now, what's the surface area of the prism at the right? And they're asking us to use a net. So I've got a net here on the left. And when I talk about the lateral surface, okay, this will be my lateral surface. Okay, I'm going to highlight in green. All right, so really I've got a rectangle. This is my green rectangle. I got a 4 plus 3 plus 4 plus 3. So a length of 4 plus 3 plus 4 plus 3. Okay, that's the total length of my rectangle. The height of my rectangle here is 5. So if I add these together, it's 14 times 5, which equals 70. Now that's my lateral area, okay, the area that's not part of the bases. Now the area that's considered part of the bases, 3 by 4, and this 3 by 4, there's 2 of them. So there's 2 bases that are 3 times 4. Now I want to make sure you're clear about what I just did. This length, this full length is 14, and that's 5, and that's where 70 came from, because 70 is the sum of these 4 figures. And now I've got my area here is 12. My area here is 12. There's 2 times 12, which is 24. Now, what we're looking at here is my total surface area, my SA. This is for bases. So my SA, my surface area, is the lateral area and the bases added together, and it's 94 centimeters squared. Okay, and that's how we're looking at those. So you'll see a picture like this where I can take and add up the perimeter of my base, multiply by the height. That's what this section is, my lateral surface area. And then I add in the area of my 2 bases for my total surface area. Now, what is the surface area of the triangular prism here? Now, there's a couple things I've got to work at. When I'm looking at this, I've got to unwrap my prism as a net. Doesn't have to be pretty, okay? Let's say that's 5. Let's say that's 5. Let's pretend this is 6 here, and that these 2 triangles are perfectly exact the same. Okay, well, the distance between my 2 triangles is 12. Okay, my side measure of a triangle, this is 6, so that makes this 5, and that makes this 5. Now, if we do it the way I just did, actually, I'm going to have you do this one. Okay, keep in mind this is also 6 and this is 5. I guess the only thing that really is kind of a mystical thing is, how do I get this height? Now, and in this case, this triangle, I'm going to get this green triangle, this triangle is isosceles. Okay, it's got 2 sides of the same. So I can split 6 into half, so that's 3 by 3. So I have a right triangle when I bring up that altitude. So I'm going to use a squared plus b squared equals c squared to get the height of my triangle. I know my hypotenuse, 5, c squared. And I don't care where you put 3. It could be a or b. But I'm going to find the other. So I've got a squared plus 9 equal 25. So a squared is equal to 16. And now I know my altitude, a, is going to be 4. So my height here is 4, and therefore my height here is also 4. And I can use that to help me find the area of my 2 bases. So if I'm talking about bases, well, I'm going to have you do that. Please find the lateral area, which we will find in black. Please find this area, LA. The lateral area, the area of the prism that's not, surface area of the prism that's not bases. That's the lateral area. Go ahead and turn me off, find that. Okay, now I've got 12 by 5 plus 6 plus 5. So that's 12 times 16. Okay, and when I'm popping that off, I got 12 times 16, that's going to be 192. Okay, that's 192 centimeters squared. Let me pull this over so I can talk about my units a little bit better. So that's centimeters squared. Now, my bases, let's use green for my bases. I already got the top up there. So my bases, okay, they're two triangles, 1/2 base 6 times height, that height we found 4, okay, happens to be 24 centimeters squared. So now we take 192 and we're adding 24 to it, and we're coming up with my surface area, that's the lateral area, and the bases added together as 216 centimeters squared. Now, I've got some folks who are, boom, you know, we did 60, we got 72, we got 60. We found that the two triangles, you know, those are 12 apiece. And we added those up. So we went 60 plus 72 plus 60 plus 2 times 12, because those are my bases. Now, is that going to be the same answer? And I go 60 plus 72 plus 60 plus 24. And it's, gosh, it's going to be 216. So that's 216 centimeters squared. Okay. So the way we used to do it, you know, when you were just coming up and doing surface area, you can still find the surface area of each thing. We're trying to find them all together a little faster. That's why I put the LA and the bases together the way I did, so we can start finding them as a group. Now, you can find formulas for laterals and surface areas of a prism by using a net. Okay. Now, the lateral area is the perimeter times the height. And then the surface area is that lateral area plus the two bases. And remember, LA is still perimeter times H plus the area of the two bases. Now, big B, they talk about big B. You define the formula, because in this case, big B, the formula is something I know. It's a rectangle, that's base times height. Big B represents whatever that formula is going to be when we talk about these formulas. So now I'm looking at the lateral and surface areas of a prism. The lateral area of a right prism is the product of the perimeter of the base, and that's P, perimeter of the base, and the height of the prism, that's H. That's perimeter times height gives me that rectangle. Now, the surface area of a right prism is the sum of the lateral area, that's the pH, and the areas of the two bases. So that's what this formula is. So we got to keep in mind what's happening with this. We're trying to get a shortcut of those formulas. So read through this again, and remember, it's the perimeter of the base times the height. And remember, we wrap these around our base for our perimeter. We multiply by height, and that'll give us our lateral area. Then after we do that, our surface area is the lateral area plus the two base areas. So keep that in mind when we're getting that done. Now, using the formulas to find surface area of a prism, what is the lateral area of a prism? Remember, LA represents lateral areas, perimeter times height. Now, in order for me to work with perimeter, I've got to have the measures of the base all the way around. Once again, I'm looking at a triangle. That's a right triangle. Well, gosh, I get to pull out Pythagorean theorem again. In this case, what I want you all to do is, let's call this one C, because that's the hypotenuse, and you find C. By the way, that C value is the same value there as well, okay? So that's what you're looking for, so make sure you recognize that. So go ahead and plug in your numbers to find C. Turn me off. Okay, welcome back, and now we've got this, and 3 squared plus 4 squared is equal to C squared. This is 9 plus 16 is equal to C squared. And this will be 25 is equal to C. And if I take that square root, 5 is equal to C. And hopefully you remember this from chapter 8 as a Pythagorean triple, a 3, 4, 5 right triangle, where 3 and 4 are the right angles. Now I have my perimeter. My perimeter value is 3 plus 4 plus 5. My height, remember the 5 is right here, and it's still centimeters. My height is the separation of my two bases. So really the whole concern about this is base identification along with being able to represent the idea of the shape as a prism or pyramid. And right now in this section, we're working with prisms. Now, my separation is 6, that's my height. Okay, so I've got my height right there. And now I've got 3 and 4 and 5. That's going to be 7. 5 is 12 times 6. And that's going to give me a 72 centimeters squared. Now that's the wraparound. I want you to think in soup label as I go around that. Okay, now they want me to find the area of my bases. So my two bases, okay, my base area, big B, happens to be 1/2 base times height. Remember, that represents the area of base, okay, and I pick formula based on the base's shape. Now, in this case, the base shape is a triangle. That's why I picked 1/2 little b times height. So I have a 3 times 4, so 1/2, 3 times 4 is the area of my base, which happens to be 6 centimeters. So there's two bases, okay, in here. So I'll be using that in my next part of my formula. What is the surface area? So what's the surface area here? Remember, surface area, let's use a different color. I'll use blue. Surface area is my lateral area plus my two base area. Okay, well, my lateral area, I found out my LA was up here. So I'm going to pop this down here as 72. My two bases, each of them were 6 centimeters I got from here. And I plug this in, and I find that my surface area is 72 plus 12, which equals my SA is 84 centimeters squared. And this should have been squared here. That was my mistake. So it should be 84 centimeters squared. Now, what's the lateral area of a hexagonal prism to the right? Hey, look, I found the hexagonal prism to the right. How is that possible? It's crazy. But I'm going to move this stuff up a little bit so you guys can like see my work on these other deals. So we're going to just group this together real quick. I'm going to shrink that down. So you got my surface area and we got that golden. So now it's out of the other work. Now, what is the lateral area of the hexagonal prism? Now, keep in mind, I want the lateral area. I want the shapes that aren't bases area. And how do I know? Well, the big thing about this is in a prism, and the dead giveaway here, in a prism, if it's not a square or rectangle shape, and it's two of them, more than likely it's the base. Actually, not more than likely. All the time, the non-rectangle square thing is going to be a base. So I've got a base. It's right here. It's a hexagon. So my base is a hexagon. It's the same on both sides, so I have two of them. The things that are connecting the hexagon is my lateral surface. The lateral surface are rectangles. And now keep in mind, I have 6 sides of that hexagon. So if I do LA is equal to P times height, and I'm looking at my 6 sides. So I've got 6 sides times 6. So my perimeter is 36. That's my perimeter of my hexagon. My height of my hexagon, we'll do that in red, 12. So that's my height, the separation of my two bases. That's a side measure. And there are 6 sides, and that's where I'm getting this. So I've got my lateral area is going to be 6 times 6 times 12, which is 432 meters squared, 432 meters squared. That's my LA. Okay, and that's the area of this. This is 6. This one is 6 times 12, which is 72, and there are 6 of them as I go around and wrap it around. So I got 72 times 6, if I want to look at it that way, and that's still 432. Now, what's the area of my one base? There's a couple ways I can do this, but we've been working with that 30, 60, 90 triangle. So I have a hexagon. It has a side of 6, so if I cut it in half with an apothem, that's 3. And now this apothem, according to my 30, 60, 90 triangle, remember that's x, this is x the square root of 3, so that's 3, the square root of 3 is my apothem. Now, the information that we learned in chapter 10 is here. We are working with area, I wrote apothem, area is equal to 1/2 ASN. This is 1/2 A, my apothem, 3 the square root of 3. My side length is 6. The number of sides is 6. So my area of one base, and now watch this magical thing. My base in this problem, the area of my one base is 0.5 times 3 second square root of 3 times 36 is equal to 93.53. So I've got 93.5307 meters squared. Okay, I've got that in my calculator. Now, what's the surface area? Again, my surface area is going to be, according to the formula, surface area is equal to LA plus 2B. Remember, B was this funky formula there? And now my LA was from up there. So 432 plus 2 times 93.53 in my calculator. So I'm going to take and multiply that by my calculator times 2 plus my 432. And I will receive 619.06, and then we got to go see and find out if they wanted me to round it to anything. What is the lateral area of the hexagonal prism at the right? They didn't tell me, so I'm going to do it to the nearest penny. Okay, so I've got 619.06, and that is meters squared. So that's my surface area. Okay, and I've got units on there. Please keep in mind my base area and my lateral area were found, and then I combined them to be the surface area. Now, what's the surface area of each prism below? This is your opportunity to give it a try. Okay, so remember, I'm just going to give you a hint. They want surface area. LA plus 2B. In this case, decide your prism, your perimeter, decide what's going to be the base, and if everybody can play it okay, use that as the base. Okay, plus your 2B. That's what I'm going to leave you with. You're going to turn me off, you're going to find your surface area, and then you're going to turn me back on. Okay, here's the deal. If I'm using the 5" by 4", I've only got half the perimeter. That's 9. The other half of the perimeter is 18. My perimeter is 18. The two bases, maybe I should make that red. The two bases, okay, the two bases are separated by this, which is 5 inches. Okay, so that's 5. Now, the area of one base, big B. Now remember, this equation is base times height. Remember, this is a rectangle. So this is going to be 5 times 4, which is just 20. So now there's 2 of those. 2 times 20. And now I'm looking at 18 times 5, which is 90, plus 40. And my area is 130 inches squared. Remember, dress up your units, dress up your numbers with units. We don't want them walking around without them. Okay, so that's my surface area. This is how I got my base. And remember, the base is the big B is area of base. How did I decide about the formula? I looked at my note sheet from chapter 10A and B and found the shapes formula on that, and I used it. Now, give this one a try, and remember, this is very much like the one we did before. That's a right triangle, okay? And in this particular case, I don't have the choices I had in the previous problem. When I have a prism, if I have a non-rectangle, the non-rectangle, remember, in a prism, I have two faces that are parallel that will be bases. Hey, the non-rectangles are my bases. So I'm going to leave you with that. Try it. Go. Okay, welcome back. Now, here's the deal. My formula is going to be the same. SA is equal to LA, the lateral area, plus 2 bases. My bases are triangles. The bases are triangles, 1/2 base times height. Well, they happen to be right triangle. Base and height are perpendicular, so 1/2 of 7 squared. That's 49, which is 24.5. Okay, that's my big B. My LA can be found using Pythagorean theorem, but I'm going to review 45, 45, 90 triangle shortcut. And remember, in a 45, 45, if I have a right angle, this is x, this is x, this is x to the square root of 2. So I know that C is 7 to the square root of 2 right now. Okay, so I can work with that, and that's the exact answer. But in case you didn't recognize it and you were going, oh, Bloom, I just did this, it still works. This is 49 plus 49, which is 98, is equal to C. If I take the square root, I'm golden. Okay, that's going to be, you ready? Square root of 49, the square root of 2, that makes 98, is equal to C, and that's 7 the square root of 2. Hey, wait, that's like magic. Bloom has a memory. No, I just used the 45, 45, 90 triangle shortcut. Okay, so if you noticed that, fantastic. If you didn't, well, maybe we should start getting used to seeing those, because at SAT, ACT, MCA, they'll be there. Now, my LA is all about perimeter times height plus 2 bases. My perimeter is 7 plus 7 plus 7 the square root of 2. That's the exact answer, times my height, which is 6. Okay, maybe I'm going to put a different number in for my height, my 6. I'll put in green this time. Okay, my 2 bases plus my 2 bases, which are 24.5. Holy cow, I went right into that other number, so I'm going to pull this stuff over. I know you almost wish that you could do this too, but I'm going to yank this stuff over so I organize it better, push this stuff out, so everything has its own little spot so you can see what I did. So I've got my 2 bases. I'm going to write this a little bit better because, you know, 24.5. So now, putting everything together, I'm going to put this in my calculator, 14 plus 7 the square root of 2, and multiply that by 6, plus 49. Okay, so placing that in my calculator, 14. Now remember, that 7 to the square root of 2 is different, so you can't just add 14 and 7. It's got to be 7 times the square root of 2, okay, and then add that to 14. Hit enter, multiply that result by 6. So right now I should have, and you should have too, 143.39 ... in your calculator plus 49. Now I'm going to add 49. And I should come up with 192.40. And that is going to be feet squared for my surface area, because I was asked for surface area. Okay, so keep that in mind. I've shown my work. I've got it done. Now, for today, You will be working on anything that's not a cylinder. So anything that's in your 11.2 that's not a cylinder. And a cylinder, it looks like a soup can. So you'll do problems 1 through 6, number 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So 1 through 6, 10, 11 through 14. That's what today's assignment, the assignment will be right now. Go ahead and get those done.